Hey guys, this is Jonathan and welcome to a C++ tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be learning about functions. Now believe it or not, we've already been dealing with functions even though you might not have realized it. And what I mean by this is that this whole main thing here that the computer starts off with is actually a function, and it's a special function because it's called main, which basically means that it's going to be the first function that the computer actually starts executing code in. So basically a function has a few features. What it really is a function does something. A function has a list of instructions, just like this main function. We've been outputting text, printing text. We've been creating variables and doing mathematical things, all sorts of different things. So those are things that a function can do. Now, a function has a few other features. It has a name, which could be anything. You could call it Apple. You could call it Apple 3, whatever you want. Then it has these end brackets, which we will deal with in a later session. But for now, you can just have these empty brackets after a function. And before the name, it has this little thing. In this case, it's an int, which means that this function is going to return something to the computer. In this case, a number. But if we had called it void, then this main function would not return anything. So let me give you an example of where this is useful. If I had a function that prints something, we don't need to return anything. It can just run through its code and then it can quit the function. However, if I had a function that adds two numbers together, I want it to return whatever the addition equaled. So if I gave it 3 and 4, I want it to return 7 to me. So that is why we would want a return value here. And it can be other things instead of ints. It could be a Boolean, which would be a true or false, things like that. So what we're going to do here is create a function. Now we don't want it to return anything. We're just going to get it to print out text. So just run through the code and that'll be the end of the function. So we'll start off by saying void, and then we'll give this function a name. Let's just call it Apple for now. Then what we do is we add brackets and we add these curly brackets afterwards, just like in the main function. And the curly brackets say that everything inside of those are the list of instructions, which we'll be writing. So in this function, let's just do something like we've done before. I will just print something out, so we can say cout, and we can say I am better than a banana. There we go. So this function is going to say, called Apple, is going to say I am better than a banana. Now, when we have this function, we need to be able to call it. Right now, what's going to happen is main would run, and it would output what's up, then it would pause and return 0. But we want in here to call Apple, which is just a way of saying run everything inside this function. Run that function. So when we want to call a function, what we have to do is just state its name. So what we're going to type in here is Apple, and then we're going to add brackets and a semicolon. And these brackets are just the same as the brackets after this function. And so now what main would do is it will call the function Apple, which will print out this line, and then it will continue on with its main function and print out what's up and so on. However, when we run this, we get a little error, as you can see down here. And it says identifier not found. And this is where we need to know a little bit about how a compiler works. Basically, how the computer reads a program. So what happens here is a computer reads just like a person reads a book, from top to bottom. So what it does is it includes this iOS stream, then it uses this namespace standard, then it says, oh, this is the main function. So now I can start executing code. And it says, okay, I'm supposed to do apple. What's apple? I don't know yet, because the program hasn't yet read that apple is a function that does something. It could be, for all it knows, a variable or a class, anything. It doesn't yet know what apple is. So we have to think about how are we going to tell it what apple is. Well, the simplest way is to actually just cut and paste this function before the main function. So now what's going to happen is the computer is going to run through these lines from top to bottom and then say, oh, here's a function called apple. Now I know what this is. So now when we come to the main function and we start executing code and we see apple, we go, oh, I know what that is. That's a function. Let me go and execute it. And then it will output this line here. So if we were to run this, it's going to say, hopefully, I am better than a banana. What's up? And then it pauses till you press a key. This is a really good way, and it's really simple to be able to get these functions to work. However, sometimes we'd like to have this main function at the top because it's the main one, and sometimes that makes sense. Other times we have functions that call each other, and it's called recursion, and then having an order, there will be no order that will make all the functions line up so that they all know what each other are. So what we have to do is create a function prototype. So basically, before this main runs and we call apple, we have to tell it there's going to be a function called apple in the future. So when you see this word apple, don't be alarmed. It's coming up. Just keep reading the code and you'll find it. So what we do is we take this header of the function, this top line, void apple and then those brackets, and we put it at the top with a semicolon. And this tells the program that this function is coming up. So now it's going to read these top lines, second line, and when it comes to this third line, it's going to say, okay, the function apple is going to exist somewhere. So when main comes along and it calls apple, it doesn't panic, it doesn't error out. And this is a really easy way of doing things. So you can always have your list of functions at the top, and then you don't have to worry about the order of all of your functions, which makes it a little easier. And you can organize it however you like it organized, which might be any way you want, alphabetical or anything. So you can see that this is working, and that is a great way of doing it as well. But either work. It's really up to preference and the situation. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.